Thanks for listening to the Hometown Holler. To hear the full episode, go to our Patreon and subscribe. To get there, visit any of our social media sites and click the link in bio, or visit www.patreon.com/the Hometown Holler. Support for the show comes from Carolina Forward, a nonpartisan organization dedicated to building a more equitable, democratic, and prosperous North Carolina.
You can learn more about their vision and values at carolinaforward.org.
North Carolina State Highway Patrol.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
A contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today.
Rock and roll has got to go.
And welcome back to the Hometown Holler. I'm Daniel Ayers.
And I'm Quinn Ray. Well, hey, man.
It's a good day for puns.
It is a good day for puns. You got one?
Always. I love a good pun.
All right, give it to me.
Well, I was going to say that the race just went balls to the walls. You did not see that one coming.
No, not at all.
You thought it was going to be something wholesome.
Well, that definitely. So I saw
like a corn pun, because Walls is from the Midwest, and there's a lot of corn there. You know, there's a kernel of truth in what I just said, Quinn.
Oh, Daniel, you're continuing.
I used to work with middle schoolers.
There's two puns in a row. Yeah, Twitter has been, or X, has been going ham today, and especially as a millennial, definitely to the windows, to the walls.
Yeah, that's right.
It was constantly put out, and so I'm pretty excited.
Well, it's funny because there's a generational, like the puns, like that was the millennial one from the window to the walls. But then I saw like boomers going, "We're gonna walls through election day," and it was just like, ooh, all right. Swing and a miss. But.
I guess. But today we have an awesome episode.
Let's dive right in, man.
It's been something looking forward to for a while. It's been on our calendar for a month or so.
Yeah.
And when we realized that we were getting ready to have this next guest, I definitely fangirled a bunch because it is something.
It was cute.
Yeah, for sure. Because even going back to 2023, I first really started stumbling across this person from one of the columns I wrote in the New York Times, and I based off a speech that I did. Well, I didn't actually get to do it, but I had it written for our local Alamance Democrat
you
party.
You let me read the draft. I remember that.
Yeah, and it was just I was like, oh, like she's on to something. And then next thing you know, we're doing a podcast, and she's getting ready to be a guest, and I'm just super stoked.
Well, who is she?
Well, today we have the immense privilege of speaking to Dr. Tressie McMillan Cottom, an acclaimed sociologist, writer, and public intellectual. Dr. Cottom is an associate professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, whose work has earned widespread recognition, including being named a MacArthur Genius Fellow in 2020.
We got a genius on the show, but I saw you're not allowed to call yourself a genius. What's the thing there, real quick?
I think it's more culture than a hard and fast rule. Well, you know, we should be.
It's a suggestion.
It's a suggestion.
Part of like decorum, I guess. Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, it's the type of thing others should say about you, and
Gotcha.
perhaps you don't say about yourself.
Fair enough.
So you're good, Quinn. We can call her a genius.
Well, this genius is an author of several influential books, including Thick, which was a finalist for the National Book Award. She is a predominant voice in public discourse as a columnist with the New York Times and has appeared on The Daily Show, Fresh Air, The Atlantic, and The Washington Post. But as her Instagram bio so eloquently says, professional badass, Gen X icon who writes to change your mind for good. And with that, welcome to the show, Tressie.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
You say you were fangirling. You all should know. I think you know. I've been following you all on socials for quite some time. And I was also super excited to get this email.
Thank you so much.
I'm blushing. I'm getting warm.
I've taught some of your stuff in my classes when we talk about like everyday citizenship practices.
Oh, wow. Stop it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's
Today's
really cool.
political influencers. We had a whole section on you.
We're
last
doing our
semester.
best.
Oh, man, that's super cool.
Well, to dive right in, you know, a lot of folks will be familiar with your work, either from reading you in the Times or reading your books or both, or seeing you on The Daily Show. But for the folks who really, really follow you, I mean, we'll say the super fans, they say that you don't write essays, you write Treses, right? So I thought a great place for us to start would just be like, Tressie 101, what's a Trese?
Tressie 101. I must say that I'm not surprised that you're the one asking that question after the the run of puns you just did. So I do feel
I love a
like,
good
yeah,
pun.
I do too, which is probably why I allow the Treses thing.
Well, a lot of people hate puns.
Well, it's supposed to be a low form
Yeah.
of humor. I don't accept that.
No, I don't either.
I think you need a certain amount of humility to do puns.
They're
'Cause we
joyful.
don't care. Exactly. We don't care that we look stupid.
No.
Yeah, it's fun to say.
And I also just think it shows a curious mind.
I
Yeah,
agree with
so
you.
anyway.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now that we think that we
Justified
are
your
right and
silliness.
everybody else is wrong, this is my favorite place to be. I took that from some readers years ago, and it's one of those things that my publisher really liked, and it stuck. And again, I liked I remember saying to the person when they said it, I was like, I cannot believe that never occurred to me. And so it was really more of that than anything else. But I think what people are referring to is my approach to storytelling, my approach to building a public audience and participating in the discourse, which is, I said when we met earlier today, I was like, I don't like to think that I have a brand. I like to think I'm brand resistant. But if I do have one, I could live with the fact that I think my essays are counterintuitive. I often get emails and letters from readers who go, I did not think I agreed with this until I got to the end. I was surprised that I followed this line of thinking. This goes against almost everything I thought, or I never thought about it before. And that to me is, I hope, a way to engage people's curiosity, as you just said, to develop people's curiosity about things. One of the things I think has happened in our world is that there are so many incentives for us not to be curious, right? To have a political identity and a consumer identity, and that's it. I'm a Prius person, or I'm a Target girl, and I go, what? That is so, to me, unimaginative, and it forecloses on you liking other things or being interested about other things. So I find that if I can kind of trick people into considering something in a way they've never considered it, it opens their minds up to what is fundamentally about empathy, about putting yourself in someone else's story and seeing if you can find some value there. So that's what I hope a Tresse is.
Is it kind of too like giving the middle finger to folks when they said the personal essay is no longer, and you're like, well, I'll show you. This is a Tresse. Then I'm getting the personal essay in.
Let me tell you, you will never go wrong assuming I was doing a middle finger. Let me just say that. I mean, I like to, staying above the fray is for other people. I'm very much in the fray. Okay, I think I am a little defensive about people's dismissiveness of the essay, because I think most of that dismissiveness is about the people who tend to write personal essays.
That's right.
Right. It is a heavily gendered genre, tons of women. Almost really overwhelmingly, when you really think about it, most of the women in like public discourse known as writers are there because of an essay. Right? And so we associate that with women's lives and the way that women tell stories. And so we tend to discount them as being legitimate. It is also true, I think, for other marginalized people. So it's true for LGBTQIA people. Yeah. It's true for immigrants, working class people, anybody outside of sort of that middle norm, right? Because we almost always have to defend our perspective. Right. And so it's almost impossible for us to derive any legitimacy to talk about anything that matters to us without first telling you who we are. And so if we dismiss the personal essay, I think we are dismissing the people who tend to do them, and that's why it's so easy for people to dismiss them. And so, I like a little bit of like, I'm going to make you read it. You think you hate an essay. I'm going to make you engage through an essay. Yeah.
Well, I work with a lot of students who are applying to colleges and helping them develop their essays and their applications. So that they can kind of put their best foot forward in a very competitive application process. And one of the things I'm always telling them is don't think of it like an essay. It's a story, right? I mean, and that, I think that's a lot of what you do is really telling stories that have a I don't know, you may totally disagree with this, where I'm going with this, but you strike me almost as like a more politically insightful David Sedaris.
I would actually be totally honored and flattered.
Okay, great. I'm so glad to hear that.
I grew up, I'm a Southern girl. I grew up reading David Sedaris. My mom loves David Sedaris. I think she has done his live show.
Wow. Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure my mom is. Anyway, so no, I would be very flattered
And that's what and it's like technically, I guess, in a technical literary sense, yes, we're talking about essays, but we're really talking about stories that shed light on some higher societal truth. An essay that you wrote recently, you talked about the Treses and taking a topic that we may think we know, and looking at it from a counterintuitive angle. We talked a little bit about this when we were setting up, but I was really struck with your piece the other week about the DMV.
Yeah.
I think, if there's one prompt that is going to make everybody sweat and kind of scratch their head up until the deadline is, how do you make a case for the DMV?
Yeah.
And not just but the DMV, you should love it. I think that was like the tagline was like,
I think so.
I love the DMV. And you should too.
That's right.
And so I saw that. I was scrolling through the Times and I saw that and I clicked on it just because I was like, I want to see how a person can make this case, and damned if you didn't.
Thank you.
Could you talk a little bit about the for folks who haven't read the article, like why should we love the DMV?
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go on this one. I did not realize I felt so strongly about it, actually, until I started writing the piece. But apparently I do feel strongly, and the more I think about it, the more strongly about it I feel. The DMV is, if you really think about it, it is the basic unit of our administrative state. You have to have a license or ID for everything.
That's right.
Right? Even if you don't drive, because it's not just the place you get your driver's license, although that's, its primary function. It's the place where you just get a state-issued ID.
That's right.
It has been part of the battle over citizenship and who is allowed to vote. So much of disenfranchisement is about controlling whether or not people need a driver's license to vote. And so if you think about it, the DMV is like this access point to everything else. We really only have that and a social security card as Americans. If you're a Southerner, you maybe have like a cornbread recipe, but that's it. That's the only proof you exist, right?
Fishing license.
That's exactly right. So what that also means is everybody's got to go there. There's no way around the DMV.
Right. It's like death taxes in the DMV.
There you go.
Funnel them in.
That's exactly. So it's fundamental. And there is no fast pass for the DMV, right? There's no way for you to eke out a little special privilege.
That was the part of the argument that really clicked for me.
Yeah.
Which is just like, everybody's got to go, everybody's got to wait.
That's right.
There is no, it doesn't matter who you are, Elon Musk, the dude under the underpass, like it doesn't matter. You go to the DMV and you wait and you get treated like everybody else.
Here's your number, take a seat, sir.
That's right. There's no red velvet rope at the DMV.
And that's beautiful.
It is when you think about it.
I really, and there is a beauty to that.
Yes. That it isn't that everybody loves the DMV. It's that everybody is treated the same at the DMV. And I think we should love that, because in a moment when we are seriously debating whether or not we are still a functioning democracy, at the big scale, to be a functioning democracy, you need a lot of tiny democracies. You need places where people from different walks of life are forced to be beside each other. And I think one of the problems and one of the reasons why we can be so easily polarized is because we have fewer and fewer of those places.
Yeah, DMV libraries,
that's about it. And you see the attacks on libraries.
Yeah.
That's why they attack them. It's one of the few places where you can still see like an unhoused person, right, sitting beside like a middle-class family doing story hour with their kids. And you can't, and there's no partitioning. And so I think we should defend what the DMV does for us.
Well, I really like the point in the column when you brought it to most of the people that work in municipalities and stuff, or government, local government, are women and women of color.
Yep.
And so who have unquestionable authority.
That's right.
And so here in that point where somebody who can be the most racist of assholes is forced to deal and understand and well, maybe not forced to understand.
But there's like this prisoner's dilemma where it's like you have really no choice but to cooperate.
Yeah, you
like,
have to comply.
You have to comply.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is why we hate it. So there are not a lot of things, especially if you are, pretty normal, right? Middle class, you pay your taxes, you vote. There are not a lot of things that can compel you to do anything, right? And so for a lot of people, that means no one's ever compelled them to do anything. And so this belief that, you don't get to tell me something really brushes up against the fact that, no, we're still a society with rules. And not only that, you won't be able to choose who makes you adhere to the rules. So often when in the other spaces where we can be compelled, the people who can compel you look like the people in power. Right?
So true.
Judges look like highly educated, mostly white men. And so we don't question their authority to tell you, no, you can't do that. But at the DMV, when it is a woman, more likely to be a woman of color, because this is the public sector, and that's where overwhelmingly middle-class women and women of color work. And if you've ever been to a local DMV, it's really just a line of women sitting there at that front desk. For a lot of people who sit across from them in that room, it's the only woman who has ever been able to compel them to do something they don't want to do.
Man, that's so cool.
And that's I don't know how long it took you to crystallize that argument, but it's a great article and well done. I think y'all should just go online and read it for yourselves. It's a very passionate argument that you make.
Thank you.
I have another question on this outline, but before we get to it, you talked about little democracies. You talked about kind of the importance of like civic engagement and building a sense of accountability to one another. Like one of the things that I think about a lot is how, like, being, I guess, the history teacher in me, loving history, I look throughout American history, and so many generations have had an opportunity, typically through war, unfortunately, to be compelled to participate in civic life and the civic project. And they come home from that experience with an understanding that we have a country. This is a country.
That's right.
And I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on some kind of, like, I have pacifist tendencies, but I think there's a lot to be said for a national service program, not military necessarily, something public works, education, like AmeriCorps on steroids, something like that. What are your thoughts on something, 2 years after high school, rich, poor, in between, everybody's got to go and make hiking trails in Yosemite?
Absolutely. I've made the same argument. I'm like you. I don't want it to be war, and I don't want it to be the military. But, one of the reasons I can sit across a table from you now, being the person I am, is because my grandfather was in the military. Right? He goes abroad for the first time, and he sees that there is a world where Black men can walk around freely. And that happened for hundreds of thousands of Black men. And so they come back home and they go, wait a minute, I could walk around Germany and be treated more like a citizen than I am in Birmingham. Right. So it was so important to really the expanded imagination of everyday Black people in this country. And it's one of the reasons we, move into the civil rights movement, which is exactly why people don't like a fully integrated, democratized military. Right. It tends to radicalize people. To do exactly as you are saying, to think about themselves as part of something bigger. What is the Army if not telling you you don't matter except as part of something bigger? Right? And so people come home with that mentality, and I think it sparks a greater public imagination about what our lives are supposed to look like.
Well, this is a perfect segue, actually. I didn't know if this was going to connect, but the place where that happens so much now is college campuses.
Totally agree.
Totally agree. I mean, I can tell you how many people I know, myself included in some ways. I got to college and I was like, this is a big world we live in. Holy crap, Especially, I lived in an international dorm my freshman year. My college roommate was a guy from Gaza who had never left Gaza before. He'd been he and I moved in together, and he'd been in the United States for 2 weeks, and those for the only 2 weeks of his life, he'd never not been in the Gaza Strip. And that experience for me
he roomed with you?
He roomed with me.
So that's what an experience.
I know. It was incredible. I mean, it really was an incredible experience for me. And in some ways, I would say it radicalized me. It made me a global citizen. It made me, and if there's one reason I think colleges are under attack now, it's because this is something that is happening. People are it is the place where so many young people are going and getting a broader sense of the world. You're a college professor. Switching from the DMV to UNC and all the letters in between, what going into this new school year, they just the Board of Governors, they've just gutted DEI. What's the vibe on campus? Faculty, students, how has that impacted morale? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Listen, I am a North Carolinian. I always like to tell people I'm very proud to be one. And when I moved back to North Carolina to work at UNC Chapel Hill, I did that in part because it was coming home. And I was a North Carolinian who had been a lifelong Carolina fan. And UNC Chapel Hill sort of lived in our minds as a place
Yeah.
in the state where things were possible, right? It is where the poorest people from the eastern part of our state had a shot of going to an institution where they would have the world opened up.
It
to
has kind of a
them.
mythical
It
character.
does,
Yeah.
and that's hard to explain because not every state has that. Lots of states do, Michigan, et cetera. But a public institution that's the flagship in your state is actually not a universal experience, and that really impacted my understanding of what college should be. One of the reasons why we love college is exactly the reason why so many people attack it, as you point out. For most Americans, especially educated Americans, and if you go to college, that's what you end up becoming, we hope, it is the only democratically socialist life they will ever live.
Yeah.
Their only access to everything that we say a social democracy should be is a college campus, shared housing. Everybody eats. Everybody's got health care.
Right.
It's walkable.
True.
You've got a social life built in, right?
Wow, yeah.
That's why we love college, and that's why people hate college. It's why.
And it's also a place where there's global citizenship.
That's right.
Right? Like, passports become
Oh, yeah.
pretty much.
Yep. We do passport parties now. Yeah. Your freshman year, we want everybody to have a chance to get a passport, right? And so, yes, it's your first, for many people anyway, your first opportunity to think of yourself outside of how you have been defined by your family and your home life. Right?
Wow, yeah.
You get to go to this place and decide who you're going to be, and you're doing it in an environment that will be unlike anything else in the United States of America. We give you everything you need to be sort of a healthy, functioning citizen on a college campus. And that's what UNC Chapel Hill has sort of been the beacon for. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's where the state has mostly experimented with that. So for me, the person that I am, with my beliefs and my politics and my relationship to Chapel Hill, I will be honest, it's heartbreaking. The last 4 or 5 years at the university, as both a citizen and as a professor and an academic who studies higher ed, it's been heartbreaking because I don't think that we understand what happens at Chapel Hill as being fundamentally about how we see our state functioning. We think these are just questions about money and about, wages and whether or not kids will get good jobs. No. This place has held together the social contract of this state for a long time. You take the very notion of diversity then out of that institution. You're not just doing it on a college campus. You are setting up the next generation of young adults to go out into, most of our graduates stay in state, to go out across the state. They'll be leaders, they will represent what UNC Chapel Hill means, and they will do that with less of a lens to understand the most diverse world we've ever lived in. And I just think that matters to every citizen in the state, even the ones who think it doesn't matter to them. It probably matters to them the most.
Taking the lens away of intentionality.
Yes.
Right? If you don't have that intentionality to broaden yourself or to help broaden others, we are going to just be the demise of
That's right.
society where we're sitting.
Yeah, one of the things that really bothered me about, there are many things that bother me about the DEI programs being gutted across the UNC system. One, I hate seeing things done in bad faith.
Same. It's
I'm
not just the outcome; it's the way they did it.
Precisely.
Right. Exactly.
I will personally. I think that I'm open to hearing arguments of from all sides for anything. I really do believe in the marketplace of ideas, and let's hear out your side. And if you think this is an actual problem, I want to hear how you think it should be solved, and let's have that. But this, I really do think, was a manufactured issue, and I don't think I don't live on UNC's campus, but I have a lot of friends who live in Chapel Hill or who've been on that campus recently, and I know folks who work there now, and it doesn't seem like this was an issue at all, other than in the minds of a few people who wanted to win. A few of them, frankly, on the ballot this year.
That's exactly
who
right.
Who
this
were trying
is
to score
absolutely
some
about political
red meat
maneuvering.
political points.
That's right. They created a problem on one of the few institutions we have in the state where we don't have that problem.
Right.
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 So you walk across our campus most of the time, and I actually do it sometimes when I'm feeling the most dejected about our politics. I just have to go out and walk Franklin Street and cut across campus to understand that what I read about our institution is not how most of the people in that institution experience it.
Right.
But I also know that perception is politics.
Yes.
Perception is politics.
And so if they can control the perception of us as a hotbed of socialism and violence, it doesn't matter what we are actually doing. Our students, you know who's the most upset about DEI being pulled out? Students who have enjoyed it. They are like you. Yeah. They have a college roommate who is from Gaza. They have a college roommate that is from Israel. Sometimes they are with each other. Oh, yeah. Right? They have college roommates that have been rich and poor, that have been hungry, who have never experienced hunger, and they want that. Yeah. The fact that we will have fewer tools to give them that just so people can control the perception of us for political reasons is a bigger loss than losing just the DEI programs. Yeah.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to, as well as, we're saying DEI now. We know that's the new age racism.
Exactly.
And you know, the new age N-word.
And we really
hired.
shouldn't even say, that's right. I think you make a good point. We should not fall into the trap of using their language.
Right.
Yes,
right. And I think it, you know, goes back to the column where you keep your eyes on the South and how we're an experimental bed here at the South. And we're seeing on the GOP side, you know, they're losing grounds with the abortion rights, right? Like they're slowly back. So they needed another trigger, easily triggered language. They kill the left when it comes to marketing and language.
Oh, absolutely.
And so just coming out with DEI, right? Knowing that there is a Kamala Harris, knowing that all we need is a hotbed of showing violence and multiple people and not the best, right? That's always the argument with it, is not the best. So leading us into, we've been seeing a lot, especially since Biden has stepped out, that Kamala is becoming the vice president now, is the nominee for the Democrat Party, and we are constantly seeing she's a DEI hire.
That's right.
What is your assessment of President Harris? Because you've written about her, that, you know, that she has to prove that a woman can lead, that a black woman can be qualified, that a South Asian woman can be legible, that a childless woman can be the nation's parent. Yeah. What are your thoughts of Kamala being?
You know, I am gearing up at the moment to cover this historic presidency from exactly that perspective. What Kamala Harris gives us as a not just with her multiple identities, but she's a clean slate for a lot of Americans. I mean, some people like us, right? We've known about her for a long time, but lots of Americans have no sense of who she is. So who she will be allowed to write herself as, the story she's going to be allowed to tell, I think will say a lot about where we are as a country, good and bad, right? And I think that for me anyway, I think that moment has come. If you'd have asked me this, and people did, right? We asked this about Hillary. So you asked me this however many years it's been now, 8-9 years. And I said, no, there's no way we're ready for that conversation. It is stunning to me that 8 years later, I actually think we might be. That's not to say I think that she will win, but I think that she won't lose for the reasons we expect. Yeah. And that's a certain type of a change.
That's progress of a kind.
Exactly. I don't know if we should cheer, but it is certainly a different type, you know?
So you're saying if she loses, it's not going to be because she's a woman.
I really think so.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, I'm as surprised by that as anyone. Because, you know, I was out there in the field at the time when Hillary Clinton was running, and I was absolutely stunned by how much people hated her and the lens through which they hated her, right?
Just because she's a woman?
Just because she's a woman.
Or she's a Clinton?
I also think she had 30 years of like the worst smear campaign anybody's ever experienced in American politics.
And I guess I just didn't realize how visceral that was for so many people. Like a woman sat beside me in a Texas roadhouse and used language so filthy that I was concerned.
That might have just been Tuesday night at the Texas Roadhouse. I don't know if that was...
Fair enough. Yeah. But, you know, there's something about seeing like a middle-aged woman in like a golf skirt just go off the rails. And I thought, oh, no, we're not ready.
Right.
Now I think we're even seeing this in how so far, I mean, things can change quickly as we have seen. But I think that's one of the reasons why the GOP is struggling to define her and to attack her and find the ground to attack her on.
They have no idea what to do with her.
No idea. And I think that is a fascinating place for us to be. It has opened up a space for the Democrats for the first time, I think, since Obama. It's Obama's first term, not his second even. To rewrite the story of what the Democratic Party means in this country. And it's long overdue. And if a Black woman or a woman of color, I think might be more accurate, can lead that conversation, to me, that almost feels like, a foretold story. Who else? Who else in the history of this country, where race and gender and immigration and migration have so shaped our understanding of citizenship, could it really end up being anybody but somebody who looks like Kamala Harris?
It does feel it does feel kind of like almost a Greek theatrical.
It does. It's exactly what I had in mind.
This face-off we're having, because
Yep.
they're both quintessentially American forces.
That's right.
Representing the nihilism of American politics, and then the hope and the intersection of so many things of so
But
many
hope's
good.
tough to sell with Dr. Cottom.
It is.
Yeah.
It is tough to sell.
Well,
me
even
on
if we
hope.
discard the hope, let's discard the hope, right? I mean, this is like a clash of the titans.
It is.
and on a philosophical level.
It really is.
Yeah.
I think what is happening in this election is so much bigger than the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to anybody, and I think I'm even on the record where I've said I'm not sure Kamala, a few years ago, I was like, I'm not sure she's the right candidate for this. But this is the candidate we've got, and that's fine because
Feels like a new candidate.
it actually does. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I'm
For
thinking
sure.
about
In
a lot this
2020,
week.
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just wasn't sold on her.
Same.
But I got to tell you,
She's got me ready to wear pearls, bro. I
Yeah,
am ready to
the
go.
transformation has been stunning. You know what? That's also women. Black women did that for her. Not just the media training, but they developed her her persona and the way she would engage with the public, and they did that over in a very short period of time. She has a team around. I think even more interesting than Kamala is the team around her.
her team's incredible. The
That
messaging.
listen, I think it is some of the most stunning political messaging we've had in a
It's
very
fast,
long time.
it's snarky, it's sophisticated,
Yes.
but it's not dirty. It's not mean.
That's right.
I mean, it really is.
And
she's-
Democrats
yeah.
have struggled with that, which is why
So
Trump
hard.
got so many easy wins.
Yeah.
Man,
That's right.
seeing her down in Atlanta where she
Yeah.
was like, if you got something to say it to my
face.
face.
Love
Dude, that crowd
Yep.
lost its mind.
Yeah.
She knew what she was doing.
Oh, absolutely.
It was so good.
Oh, yeah. It's a cross between, a few years ago we would have said she was, speaking black, she's code switching.
Right.
But no, with today's young voters in particular, the language of social media is that voice.
That's
right.
right.
And so what that gives the Democrats, the opportunity that gives them to open up the political messaging if they take the charge, and it looks like they're going to do it, they're going to take the charge, really could be exciting.
I mean, she needs to take what Hillary did and what Biden did with that messaging and do the opposite. And that is
basically,
And, well,
yeah.
really
Yeah.
though, and she's starting to do it. And then
Yeah.
now today, what a great day to have you here in the studio.
But before we get to Walls, I have one more question.
Okay.
Okay.
This may be a silly question, but I was reading some of what
Silly
you wread
away,
about.
I say
Daniel.
no silly
We'll see.
questions.
But as I was reading some of what you wrote about Vice President Harris in the Times, and you talk about, like Quinn quoted, she has to prove that a woman can lead, that a black woman can be qualified, and that a South Asian woman can be legible.
Yep.
The word legible, that was a really interesting word choice, and
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet you picked that word for a reason.
I sure did.
And I was like, oh, I get to talk to her, and I get to ask her, why'd you pick legible? Because I'm the kind of
Yeah.
person who will look at an email or a text message and be like, is that the right word?
Oh, yeah.
Was that
are,
legible?
Oh,
Words
yeah.
are really important to me, and so
Same.
I just wanted to ask about just why legible.
Oh, listen, if you ever want to talk wordsmithing with me, it's one of my favorite things in the world. So not a silly question, and so few people ask me questions like that I get geeked about it. So yes, I always choose words deliberately, and so yes, I paired that with her South Asianness for a reason.
Yeah.
I think the trajectory of South Asians in this country is often subsumed to the Asian immigrant story, the sort of pan-Asian immigrant story, China, Japan, et cetera, right? South Asians have a slightly different perspective of immigrating to this country because they are more likely to be racialized because they are darker skinned.
Right.
And come from a darker skinned country. And I actually do think that matters for why they are kind of invisible when we are talking about Asian Americans. The image you have in your mind is not Kamala Harris's
No, it's
mother.
like Tiger Mom.
That's
it's like Crazy Rich
it's
Asians.
absolutely
Yeah.
Crazy Rich Asians. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And what that allows people to do is to it allows some very wealthy, powerful, privileged minorities to subsume their privilege and power in the notion that they are marginalized, right? What I think Kamala Harris has the opportunity to do, I hope that they embrace her talking about actually her South Asianness, because I think it challenges that idea in a way that, one, the country is ready for, and that, two, we don't have the language for. So she's got an opportunity here to give us some language to talk about different kinds of immigrants. People come to this country under very different circumstances, and we treat them very differently. And I think her South Asianness, then, it's illegible to us.
Yeah.
We don't even have the way. That's why everybody's arguing about whether she's black.
Right.
Because that's the only thing we know how to talk about.
Right.
And so I hope she takes up the chance to make it more legible to us. Yeah.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
problem. I
That was
loved
great.
it.
Well, talking about her being black, before we even get to the next question I was going to get, we talked about how her messaging right now, she has just overtaking the memes and social media, and it's just been all about her raising a shit ton of money. And Trump is kind of like, he got shot. You know, like, I mean, nobody was
I didn't think they were
going
to get him out of the media cycle with that one, but they did.
They did.
So do you think Trump purposefully went to the National Association of Black Journalists
Absolutely.
to get those headlines, to be
Yes.
disruptive?
Oh, absolutely.
He wasn't trying to win votes. He
No.
went there to just piss
To
people
get
off.
in, to be in the newspaper.
Okay.
That is quite literally everything that anyone close to him has ever written about him says the only thing that drives him are media hits. He cares about how much screen time he gets on Fox News and how often they talk about him in the Times and the Post. That's what he cares about.
Good or bad.
That's right, good or bad. I mean, he is the quintessential sort of boomer reality TV generation. It doesn't matter how people perceive you as long as they're watching, right? That's the lesson
As
from
long
like
as you're
Survivor.
living rent-free.
In their heads.
Yeah, right.
And we have sucked at doing that. We have accepted his terms of the debate, his entire like political career. We have, even when we have challenged it, we have been hemmed in by our own sort of like liberal self-awareness, right? And that has kept him at the center of the debate. What Kamala Harris's team has figured out how to do, and I've got a theory about why they're so good at this.
Let's hear it.
You know, everybody talks about how Donald Trump is the apprentice candidate for so many Americans.
You're fired.
That's right. But what people forget is that the only people to ever hand Trump his ass on The Apprentice were two black women.
That's right.
Omarosa and
Omarosa.
Nene Leakes.
Okay.
I don't think Donald Trump, as either apprentice or president, has anything for a black woman. He's actually even shown in his own apprentice background that black women can, in our language, dog walk his ass. And I think they are dog walking him. And he's scrambling, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, he's not used to talking. It's the DMV story all over again.
Right.
He has never in his life dealt with a woman of color who has something he wants, right? And can say no to him. And I think that it drives him to a place of just distraction that takes him off of his Trumpian game, which is what we're seeing. And I think some of it too is about he's never been as good a candidate as we've given him credit for.
Right.
He doesn't pivot well, right? He doesn't pick up on the new sort of news cycle. And I think they are exposing those weaknesses.
That was one of the great tragedies to me about the debate was that Trump didn't win that debate.
No, he did not.
If I showed you that debate and just took out the Biden parts, you would leave that debate thinking we have great reason to be concerned about the state of this man's psychology.
Seriously.
And that's where
he's
neoliberalism
perseverating.
got in
I mean,
the way.
it is really. I just remember watching him and just being like, this guy, like him or hate him, whatever, he's not well.
That's right. Yep. I thought it was obvious too.
But our moderators did a terrible job.
Yeah,
they did a terrible job for
recognizing
sure.
that.
Yeah.
But I'm excited now because I don't think he can help but be that way.
Exactly.
And that will come out inevitably. And,
And
already
he has too much hubris to let anybody
Yes.
train it out of him. Like, right, no amount of debate prep. They've even talked about how impossible it is to prepare him for debates and speeches. So is both his declining abilities, the fact that he doesn't have anything to draw on from his history of how to attack.
Hey, y'all,
and
thanks for listening to the Hometown Holler. To catch the rest of the episode, head over to our Patreon and subscribe. You can get there by going to any of our social media pages and clicking the link in bio or Googling www.patreon.com/the Hometown Holler. Cheers.